Hey, what's good, everybody? This video is gonna be different from the other ones that I've done. This video is gonna be about getting over writer's block. In case you haven't noticed, most of my videos it says Omar Angulo music and video. Just a little background on why I'm qualified to talk about this is, I've written songs for over 20 years, written over 1,000 songs, all genres pretty much, or whatever, kind of interested me, from reggae to reggaeton to hip-hop, English, Spanish, R&B, soulful type stuff, club songs, rock, hip-hop rock, country rock, alternative, you name it, I've written it, right? It just goes all across the board. I don't have writer's block anymore, but I did get it once. And so this is definitely for the songwriter that it's not gonna be like a quick these 5 steps, and it's kind of like you plant the seeds and you'll pretty much never get writer's block, or at least I haven't. There's no, like right now, if someone hired me to write a certain song, I could do it on the spot. It's really not, it's not hard for me at all, right? So I actually made a list because I kept trying to go over this video, and I mean, I could make this video like an hour long if I go into all side stories and all that other crazy stuff. So number 1, write when you're inspired, right? Never pass up a chance if you can. Never pass up a chance when you come up with something. Sometimes, it's not that complicated. I'll get into that right now, right? It's still connected to the number 1 about right when you're inspired. For example, when I had started songwriting, I started like as a sophomore in high school, right? But as I was becoming more serious about it, fresh out of high school, working jobs that I wouldn't want to call them horrible, but they were jobs that, manual labor. They wanted you to be like a robot, a machine, not talk to your coworkers. I even got let go from a job for working and talking, right? So, that's the kind of jobs that, the good thing is they inspired you, so you would get ideas. Sometimes you're working, I would have to sneak off to the bathroom, get a piece of toilet paper, have a pen handy and write a hook or a verse that came to mind, right? That was pre smartphones. Once the smartphones came in, it was a lot easier, because the downside to writing down songs like that was that sometimes you'd forget the cadence, you'd forget the melody. So when you try to go over it again, sometimes you just couldn't remember how it went, and you knew it was great, you knew it was catchy, it was on point, but sometimes you just couldn't remember, right, the melody, which was probably what made the song that much better. And so fast forward to smartphones, you could record. So I would use the voice memo. I'd be driving and come up with like 20 song ideas, and once I had the hook, it was a done deal for me. Like, the song would write itself once I had the hook. So once I had the voice memo thing, I would just have so many songs, right? And that I would record little samples and come back to after and write it out and all that stuff. A lot of times, be listening to other people's music. Never be embarrassed to write over someone else's song. You hear, for example, when I started rapping, right, I'd hear a Snoop Dogg song, rap, love the beat, rap over it, make my own thing. Sometimes I never use those, but it's as I was finding my style, finding the way to write. I mean, I would even write over heavy metal music. I think I wrote over like Metallica's One, because so I would get real creative. I'll get to that later. But so finally, eventually, I did hit writer's block at a pretty young age, and I remember it hitting me like, whoa, I thought I was great at this. I thought I was like this genius writer. Then I just had writer's block. That goes into my number 7 or 8, right? But I'll come back to that, right? It's about just being young. You kind of run out of things to talk about. So I'll come back to that. So when I hit writer's block, luckily I was already in the zone of every weekend I would buy books, right? So I would go to Barnes and Nobles, go to the sales section, and buy books. When I was going through that, I found a book called Write Now, right? So it was Write Now, and it was like a $7 book. It talked about writer's block and how to overcome it. So I wish I still had the book. I was looking for it. I would have put the author's name and everything. So if I find it before I finish editing this video, then I'll put it in there. But I'm sure they got plenty of books about it now. So this is just for those of you that don't want to read a book. The thing about that book though, it was like maybe 150 to 200 pages, and I only read 10 pages, and that's all I needed. It talked about trying to write right before you go to sleep and right after you wake up. And the reason being is because your mind is in between like that dream state where, when you dream, anything's possible. When I was little, I would have dreams that I was floating off into space and all this craziness. Animals talking, like you named it. I've had some crazy dreams. So when it comes to songwriting, I think, there were times when I used to be too critical, especially because I started writing as a storyteller. It was more realistic. When I started rapping, that's kind of the style that got my attention, right? It was supposedly reality rap. Supposedly these guys were talking all this real stuff. So that's kind of, as a young kid, what you think is like, oh, everything has to be, we didn't know that it was creative stuff and this and that, right? So it was harder to write at that time, right? But when I read that book, I understood. And also later, once I found out, like, it's all people just write, stories. So that it helps you. It helps your brain just spoof, like, to where you could write. Sky's the limit. So you just gotta decide if you're gonna be someone that's all you write about, then obviously it's gonna tie in more to later, like the number 8 or 9 number 8 that I'm gonna talk about. So to end the first point is try it, right? If you're having trouble, with writer's block, try writing right when you wake up and right before you go to sleep. It worked for me. It eventually became so second nature. I would always do it to where I would be running late to work sometimes. One of my songs that people like the most to this day, it's just an emotional song, so people could relate to it. Unfortunately, it's a heavy song, but people still to this day like it. I was actually late to work to where I called in, like I was gonna be an hour late, and they told me, oh, just take a sick day, whatever. So I was like, cool. And any artist, it goes without saying, there'll be times when you do this where the world disappears, you're in the zone, you're gonna finish writing that, and you'll learn to do that. That's when you're serious about your craft, right? Like, it doesn't matter who's calling you, your phone's off, you're not looking at your phone, you go all in. When you're writing, you're gonna finish, right? So that goes to my number 2 point. The number 2 point is finish. It'll pay off later. For example, with rapping, there's times when you get to that, you're writing a 16-bar verse, you're probably at like 8 bars, and the last 4 bars you just can't think. You're at the point where you're rhyming sat, at, cat, hat, that kind of stuff. And just finish it. You know what I mean? Try to finish it. You'll come back later to it, and you could edit it out and rewrite those last 4 bars. But somehow, it's something psychological that I learned about later, that just finishing things helps out like your whole life. I won't get into that because that's just a whole another thing, right? But finish, and somehow you're training your brain to finish things. Eventually it becomes second nature. That ties into number 3. Number 3 is expand your vocabulary. If you don't got words to write, and also reading, right? So you expand your vocabulary and also your knowledge base. I can't even tell you how many times I've read stuff that made it into my music, right? Stories, especially with rap music, you could use metaphors, and and that goes with any kind of song too. Like, you could write something about love and be like, you know, we're in love, like, you know, Romeo and Juliet. I remember an oldie song that said something about that, like about Romeo and Juliet and this and that. So you just start bringing in all these different things that you've learned. So if you don't expand your vocabulary, I think I got lucky. I heard some rapper talk about it early on, and he talked about how he would read the dictionary. So I started learning at least 10 songs a day. 10 words a day. I had this little black composition book. I would write 10 words, you know, and some of them I never ended up using. They were probably a little too, you know, they didn't go with street rap or gangster rap or whatever people want to label it. To me, it was more like a reality rap kind of thing. So, you know, it just didn't go with that, right? You know, a lot of words, but I never ran out of words. At least that was a good thing. You know, I sometimes, a while later, I ended up using those kind of words. So number 3 is expand your vocabulary. Number 4, never hesitate to collaborate with people that are better. You got to check your ego at the door. You can't be like, you don't want someone to outshine you. Try harder. Put in the work. Like I said, expand your vocabulary. Learn some stuff. Practice. When I started, you know, when I got in a group, I started rapping with a friend that he had been writing since junior high, I think 7th grade or maybe even elementary. I didn't start writing until I was a sophomore in high school. That's when I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. I think I was probably at least doing it for at least a year when I remembered him, and I went to get him, and I was like, hey, are you still rapping? And then he told me yes. I rapped something for him, he rapped something for me, and then we came together and we formed a group. To me, I mean, he was a genius writer. Even at that young age, it was insane, like how he could write. And so it became friendly competition. He thought I was good enough to work with, but to me, I know like he was on another level, but it was friendly competition to where I started getting better real quick, right? Because I was rapping with him, you know. So I would recommend that. You know, there's a lot of like, I feel like I haven't been invited to the party at times because of stuff like that, right? Like I said, with rap, it's a lot of egos. Nobody wants you to be better than them and this and that. So, you know, me, I always wanted real talented people. I didn't want to, like, in that world of music, a lot of people will put on their friends just because they're friends, or they used to, at least, you know, back then. And I just never wanted to bring someone along that I didn't think really had the skill set, right? Because it showed. You know, there were people that were really talented, and those were the ones that I would invite to, you know, do music with me. So never be, you know, you'll cheat yourself if you don't try to collaborate with people that make you better, right? So that's number 4. Number 5, learn not to say, you know, don't say no. I would try to sometimes make songs with people, and then they'd come back with the whole, oh, that's not really my style. After a week of me waiting for them to write something to it, then they'll come back, oh, do you have anything else? That's not really my style. I can't tell you how many times that happened. Very disappointing. Made me not want to work with these people again. I never said no, which is why, you know, I just got better. I remember the first club song I wrote, I actually went with the song, and you know, I wrote it, and then the producer was like, you know, he kind of like, it's not working. And I was like, oh wow, you know, I had murdered it on the hook, the chorus, because, you know, I don't know if I said it, but, you know, all the songs I did with, you know, I would write the parts for the male singers, female singers. The reason that happened real quick was because once, you know, I had got this really great singer, I sent them the music, told them what the song's about, everything, gave them the opportunity to write. They sounded like they had it, no problem. You know, a week later, we go to the studio, I'm paying for it. You know, you can't tell them, oh, I'm sorry, she's not ready, let me, you know what I mean? So I had to write something on the spot. I'm already paying, you know. That was a good thing. Back then, not everyone had home studios, so you had to, you know, you went to the studio, you paid money, and and this person wasn't ready, so I had to write something on the spot. I learned real quick, never again was that gonna happen. Whether it was like the embarrassment, the frustration, all that, at that moment I decided this is never gonna happen again. So I would always write for, I would come prepared. I think there's been like 3 or 4 songs out of all the hundreds of songs I've released that someone, they wrote their part for the hook, right, or the singing part. Like when I worked with rappers and this and that, they wrote their parts. But as far as like singing and all that, I've always written everything, whether a male or female singing on it, English or Spanish, I wrote what they're singing, right? So that. And so back to that story about the club song that I was failing at. I had already wrote the singing parts and they were great. I got this guy that sounded like a Latino Michael Jackson, amazing singer, right? But then my rapping parts, the producer was like, and he was kind of like, why don't you? And it was the first club song I was really trying to write, so I ended up writing 8 verses just to come up to only use 2. But I ended up using the first one and number 8. I was already ready, like 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 were, and finally I got lucky with not lucky, like it was work, right, with number 8. So number 1 and number 8 I used, and that was like the hardest song to date that I wrote, right? But it made me better, because rather than give up and say, forget, I'll just do another song, it was like I had already paid for the music. He gave me the music, I had the singer. It was like I'm going in no matter what, right? So that was the hardest song, and I remember how frustrated I was, because I was so used to writing something and it was on point. Like sometimes like the first shot, boom, it would come out, right? With the other stuff I would do, but the club song was so back to that, never say no, right? That's number 5, I believe. Yeah, so don't cheat yourself out of that experience. It'll make you better. And it all goes back to the writer's block, right? And next time, like when you're feeling like you have writers, it kind of will go away after that. I don't think you'll really have it. So once you're using all these things that I'm listing, and you're using it for the long run to further your career, you won't have that problem anymore. So number 6 is don't censor yourself. In today's culture, I know it's really hard to say that, but when I say that, don't censor yourself, when you write, let it go. Just when you're feeling, write it. Edit later. Or scratch the song. But the therapy involved in not censoring yourself, it's like, me, I look at it in a whole big way. I'd rather like know what someone is thinking, because then you could see, okay, you're this angry. Why are you that angry? Or just someone venting. See, the good thing about when I was writing, there was that culture of not a whole lot of talking about your problems, this and that. But for some reason, I found I was gonna vent one way or another, and it ended up being with the music, right? Which is why I wrote so much. I couldn't go online and post, I'm feeling this or I'm feeling that, or my girl cheated on me, or this and that, whatever was going on, I put it. And some of those songs, there was a time when I remember dealing with a female that, did what she did, and I destroyed her on a song and I never released it. You know what I mean? Or just other like angry songs that. So that's why I'm saying, don't censor yourself. If you need to write it, you write it. I've never been a therapist. Nowadays, I don't think I know too many people that it's like literally 50-50, right? It's like at least 50% of the people out there now, and that's great, right? But as a songwriter, try it. If you're in need of help, you go see whoever you need to see, and you talk to, you vent, post whatever you need to post. For me, since it wasn't really available to me, I ended up finding out that it was a great tool for songwriting. Rather than spend a 2-hour conversation talking to a friend or someone or this or that, I didn't have that, or I wasn't brought up in that, so luckily I would write it. And when it came to songwriting, man, it was therapeutic. It was great at learning to express your emotions. That became my canvas, to where when I would write, even though to everybody I seem like this tough guy, when in those times, like I guess I gave off this certain image, right? But when it came to songwriting, that's when it was like, that was my place, right? That was my safe place, my this, my that, where anything, like I wrote what I felt, and that was that, you know. Because I mean, you're behind closed doors, right? It's you by yourself. It's you with that. That's your canvas, you know. You're painting, you know, whatever you're painting, right? So don't censor yourself. Do it after, because I just gave that advice. That's kind of what prompted me to make this video as well. Is that I told someone, hey, things have changed now. So, you know, someone probably like 10 years younger than me, very, very talented. So you know, I told them, like, just make sure if you are gonna release something, make sure it's something you're really ready to stand for, and not, you know, not sway, or that's what you really believe in, because things are different now, you know. You can't say whatever you want to say without expecting, you know, backlash or something. For me, I'm totally against that, because like I said, if people don't express themselves, they're gonna express themselves in another way. In the time when I was songwriting, when we said music saved our life, it really did. It was like, you wrote about it, you didn't go do it, right? It was different. So that would be my advice. Don't censor yourself. Do it after, and then you could scratch the song, you could edit it out. But if you need to express something, just let it go. Don't overthink, like, oh, I can't say this, I can't say that. You let it go on that piece of paper. That's your world at that moment. You let it go, right? And you know, like I said, it's therapeutic, all that good stuff. Number 7, keep everything. You know, you might miss an opportunity. Like, you know, I would write so much that I remember even having an opportunity where I got to record where, you know, people that were legends to me, right? Like, if you saw, I visited the gravesite of Eazy-E. You know, that was someone I grew up listening to. You know, I told this Tupac story. You know, I got to the studio once where they told me, you know, Eazy-E had recorded there, Tupac, there's other rappers from the Ghetto Boys, Scarface, all these, you know, DJ Quick, all these people. And it was just, at the moment, I kind of just went in the, you know, I got lucky because I was ready. Like that, you know, if you're ready, if you stay ready, you don't gotta get ready. I took like the first couple lines from a verse I had wrote that went with what they were talking about in the song, and then I added on the spot. I wrote the rest to fit, you know, the mood of what they were talking about. And had I not had so many things to pull from, I would have missed that opportunity. It reminded me of the story of this rapper, Badass, rest in peace, and to Tupac too, rest in peace, that you know, when he rapped with Tupac, it's because nobody else in the studio was ready. He had some stuff that went with that song. He hopped in the booth, and boom, and the rest is history. Is this famous Tupac song called Crazy. You know, so it was on that Machiavelli album. It had millions of sales, all this and that. So you know, but that's what it's about. When you're ready, then you won't miss an opportunity, right? So and it helps with the writer's block. Like I said, at that moment I was kind of panicking, like, oh, I want to get on this. You know, I didn't have nothing really, and I started digging through songs I had, and you know, I got lucky. I might have even had one of my little composition books with me, because a friend took me to the studio, and you know, and it ended up working out. So number 8, this is the last one. I know I made this video kind of long. Is you have to experience stuff, right? You know, later on, like for example with acting, I met this guy that was like 60 years old. He looked super young though, but you know, he was like 60 years old. And he said when he tried to go to acting school when he was like 20 years old or something, he was trying to be an actor, and you know, the instructor told him, like, you know, experience stuff. If you really want to become a great actor, experience stuff. And so the same thing happens with music. Is like, you can be a great songwriter without having, you know, all these crazy traumatic experiences, but at the same time, it will make it a little, you'll connect with these stories, right? Like, if you notice, like, a lot, it just goes with the territory. A lot of songwriters, actors, this and that, have experienced a lot of things. sometimes people don't really realize it, right? They see people and they'll be like, oh, this actor, this and that, this songwriter, they have everything and this and that. They don't realize that they have a backstory. You know, there's a lot of things that happened that most great songwriters and actors have to pull from. You know, that's how it's able to be so believable, because, you know, so number 8 is just experience things in life. Don't I mean, you don't have to, you know, like I said, I don't want to tell anyone, oh, go live, and then, you know, you get into trouble or nothing like that, you know. It just kind of, it's almost like it just happens, right? If you're watching this, you know, you're an artist, singer, songwriter, you probably already experienced a lot of stuff. So hopefully this helped you in some way. If I see people interact, like it, comment, you know, I'll go into more stories. I could elaborate, you know, on different experiences. You know, I mean, like I said, it's 20 plus years of songwriting, all this and that. I was just trying to touch on what helps the writer's block, and for it to be like a longevity thing, for you not to just like think, you know, just like that you're gonna be the best writer. Because once you plant these seeds, then you will, you know, like I said, I'll never have writer's block again. I haven't, you know, I had it one time, and that's all it took for me never to have it again. So hopefully, yeah, hopefully this helped in some way. If it did, I'll make more videos like it, and if not, then I'll just do this one, and hopefully it helps out whoever it's meant for. It reaches them. All right, thank you for watching.